you brought this up, and people brought this up to us too. What's going on in the story?
Yeah.
What is it about?
So this is back to the debates, right? On Thursday, we ended up covering the debates live for 3.5-3-ish hours. There's Kate.
Yeah, Kate. You can find electors from last time on Wikipedia.
Yep, they're all listed on full everything.
Thank you for the super chat.
Sinclair Broadcasting Group ended up broadcasting a commercial in the middle of the debates depicting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a photo of her being burned, and it was for a Republican congressional candidate running against, who's been described as the AOC of the right, So a minority woman who's young, energetic, and very, very conservative. It got lots and lots of attention, and when we were covering the debates, and we were talking about this earlier, the way that we try to do these react videos to debates, and we're listening intently, trying to see what we can talk about, and they're so tedious and all over the place, and we end up today having to rehash a lot of individual things from the debates. We take those commercial break times to try and give quick hot takes in the moment. And it turns out we, at the end of our entire segment, we spent 3 hours, three and a bit hours watching the debate, talking about it. We ended up missing the biggest thing that happened on the evening, and it was because it was a commercial, and it was during those commercial breaks that we were talking. And we had a moment where we were saying, well, what do you think the 1 or 2 biggest talking points from the debate that people are going to talk about are going to be? And I don't think any of our guesses were right, because the thing that overshadowed all of the debate was this crazy advertisement from a congressional candidate who just wanted to take pot shots at AOC. Now, one of the things I think that's interesting about it is, for as intentionally inflammatory, no pun intended, as it was, it sort of highlights how the GOP really wants to go on this socialism is trying to take over America and Stalin is scary, everybody. Don't you remember communism? Bah, 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 bah. And then so they're going to pick on AOC, the person who's calling herself a democratic socialist. AOC has really, really gotten under the skin of the GOP.
And DCK Punk was a super chat, the antithesis to Andrew Yang.
Antithesis.
Antithesis.
Yeah.
There,
Antithesis.
Yeah.
That's probably how you say that word. Yeah. That sounds right.
Antithesis, yes.
Yep. But yeah, what do you guys think? The GOP's general strategy, do you think this is warranted? Do you think it will work?
Well, okay, if someone is the exact opposite to AOC, you got to wonder what her talking points are going to be, what she's going to be running on. So I guess she's pro-abortion, she's going to be against any kind of political reform about getting money out of politics. What kind of campaign is she? She's going to definitely be pro-friendly Wall Street.
I think it smacks of nationalism, right? It's the base, so like, at least she doesn't love America.
It could also be very clever marketing, because if you're trying to run for Congress, no one cares. Everything is presidential focused now. So do we think that there are, and we saw Trump, well, we got 83% of Trump supporters in New Hampshire, 83% of Republicans are Trump supporters in New Hampshire. Do we really think that this is not a wonderful way for a Republican to market? Because there's a lot of people that agree with that methodology and that kind of hatred being put out onto a commercial. And if you could put out a small commercial during a Democratic debate, Democrats are going to freak out over it. Like Paul said, make it the biggest event of the evening, even though it's not part of the debate. And when that happens, Republicans, a lot of times, it very much seems, plan out events so that they can have Democrats attack them because people like that. And if I look at it from that point of view, this is a very clever way on their part. I mean, all the stuff you guys said about how atrocious it is as true as it needs to be. I would even say go further. But this is the politics that we're living in, where if you put an ad on the DNC election, she's probably gotten a lot of story. There are probably people in the district she's running for that have not even heard of her, that have heard of her because of this. So she took advantage of our twisted system.
Yeah. And that's why we got to get money out of politics. That's why we really had to have to have political reform in this country, but also, Paul, you got an update.
Yeah, just a couple other things. So the woman that ran the ad is starting a group called, or is I guess the main person in a group called New Faces GOP, and I think it's sort of a reaction to or an understanding of the fact that the GOP is made up of a lot of old white men. And they sort of take that, I guess it was Heritage Foundation that did the study that basically said we need to try and reach out to minority voters because we're going to need that constituency. I think this is a conservative effort in that front. But again, the gist of it, so in that commercial, you know, as AOC's face sort of gets burned, the photo of her gets burned, what's behind it is historical images of Cambodia. And it is totally dovetails with that whole, you know, democratic socialism just doesn't understand what real socialism is, because you know what real socialism is? It's people who want to take over government and kill everyone. That's what socialism means. Let's not get into any nuance about theory or what actual it means. Let's just try to make sure we convince everyone that socialism means somebody wants to take over the government and kill everyone.
Yeah, and so if that's going to be their plan, it was very interesting how people were said. I remember way early on before the primary really kicked off, and a lot of people I talked to, again, that same older, whiter, or wealthier category, would say, well, they're just going to make Sanders seem like a socialist.
He is.
And my response back then should have been what I would say now is, no matter who wins, they're going to make them to be a socialist.
They call Obama a socialist.
Why act? Yeah, they called Obama. He's a moderate Republican. They called him a socialist. Why do you act? And it's like, I don't get why so many Democrats that are, you know, well, I won't say past that, but are so interested in tying themselves to Trump unintentionally. They watch news and they just look at all this Trump stuff that happens. They compare the bar that they want Joe Biden to be at to Trump. It's crazy how, in a sense, they've become the very thing that they, I'm sure, intended to fight. But
yeah, well, there's something else I want to add to this, Daniel, because you brought up a very good point, like how they call it, you know, how the Democrats are afraid of the word socialism and Republicans still call them that. Look, we did a story in Chicago Corner where the Republican GOP in the state of Illinois was saying that Nancy Pelosi is a socialist. And there's been Republicans calling Mayor Rahm Emanuel a socialist and numerous other corporate centrist Democrats socialists. And my response is, guys, these are not socialists. They're on your side. They're as corporatist and as capitalist as they can get. I think the whole idea and definition of democratic socialism is completely lost upon the GOP, and I think we need to have a real conversation about political theory and really how we can reform our political system. So there we go.
Yeah, the you don't understand socialism thing seems to never go away. And it seems like the people who rely on you don't really understand socialism or the history of socialism argument tend to be the people who don't understand socialism or the history of socialism. So
what a shocker.
Yeah.